The sea was stormy when the young Haakon sailed from England to Norway, when he was on his way to overthrow Eric Bloodaxe. That is not an exaggeration. It was so stormy at sea that people on land in Norway speculated that his ship had sunk and that Haakon and his crew had drowned. It was a critical time in Norway's history, as the people had found a way to get rid of their oppressive king. The last thing they needed was for their new hope to drown at sea. Earl Sigurd from Trøndelag had been in contact with King Athelstein in England and told him that Norway was looking for a new king to overthrow the tyrant Eric Bloodaxe. They made a deal so that he would come to bring peace to Norway, something that would also benefit England. When Haakon finally arrived in Norway, the reigning king Eric Bloodaxe had fled the country, to everyone's surprise. He understood how unpopular he was, and that he would likely lose the civil war against Haakon. Unlike Eric, Haakon was liked by everyone he met. He respected the local rulers, listened to advice, and was generous with gifts. However, his Christian beliefs would always be a thorn in his side. Haakon was known as the first Christian leader of Norway. That inevitably gave him enemies, especially in the region of Trøndelag. Haakon brought bishops and priests from England to give him advice and to spread the new faith, but in Trøndelag they didn't want anyone to take away their pagan beliefs. When Haakon built churches in the west, they were quickly burned to the ground. In frustration, Haakon went to Trøndelag to convince the people there to adopt the true faith, but there was a lot of resistance. There was a famous encounter with some locals during a blood sacrifice ceremony where Haakon was bullied and forced to eat horse meat against his own will. He had to pay respects to the heathen gods. This made Haakon so angry that he promised to come back with a very large force to take revenge. But this never happened. He could easily have lost that fight against the very powerful Earl Sigurd. Having avoided civil war with his brother Eric and avoided conflict with the powerful Vikings in central Norway, he managed to hold on to peace for a long time. His ambition was not to become a glorious warrior like many of his fellow Viking kings wanted. Instead, he tried to build institutions that would last. In addition to building churches and strengthening Christianity, Haakon would also import laws from England. He implemented both the Gulathing and the Frostathing. Haakon would take law and order seriously. To deal with crime, there would be a death penalty for all thievery above a certain value. If someone had been wronged by another person, they had the right to kill them on the spot, much like the laws in England at the time. For a Viking, Haakon managed to hold on to peace for a very long time. That's another reason why he earned the nickname Haakon the Good. However, there were many Viking warriors who were longing to fight, to die an honourable death on the battlefield. After all, many Norwegians worshipped a religion which was based around warfare. As one of Haakon's subjects put it, "I feared, during this time of peace, that I would die of old age in my bed. I would rather fall in battle under my chieftain's command." Some warriors would get their wish. The main threat Haakon faced was from the sons of Eric Bloodaxe, who wanted revenge. They were allies with Harald Bluetooth in Denmark, who wanted to rule over more land than just Denmark. It was the same people, with the same force, who would attack again and again. Together, they would attack Norway many times, but Haakon's army always managed to persevere. After the Battle of Rosterkalv, there was peace for 6 years, before they would once again meet in the final Battle of Fitjar. During peacetime, Haakon managed to set up an alarm system, which was the first of its kind in Norway. On the mountaintops, guards would light a fire when they saw incoming enemy ships. That would give a signal to the next mountaintop, and so on. It would take 7 days for a light in southern Norway to reach the mountains in the north. There may have been around 800 of these in Norway. Unfortunately, this system was very flawed during Haakon's lifetime. Some guards had to pay with their life for lighting it on fire when there were no incoming ships. Because of these strict penalties, no one dared to light a fire when the big war came. However, the system lasted up until the Napoleonic Wars. Haakon's government was a migratory government with no real political centre. He would travel from farm to farm and stay there until the food ran out. There were designated farms throughout the west, designated for the purpose of serving the king whenever he came. The king always travelled with his hird. The hird was his own personal army, which consisted of around 100 men, as well as other members of his small government. All farmers and slaves throughout the kingdom had a duty to defend the country when it was attacked. This could be a reason why the army of the attacking Danes was larger than the Norwegian force when they met at the Battle of Fitjar, because Haakon's army was so scattered throughout the country. But Haakon gathered those he could find, and warriors rushed to the scene as soon as they knew they were under attack. In the battle, Haakon had a golden helmet, and used a sword with a golden hilt, which had been given to him by King Athelstein 20 years earlier. The sword was named Stonebite, because it could cut a millstone until it reached its eye. According to the Skalds, Haakon's sword did good work at the Battle of Fitjar, cutting through shields and severing heads. Whenever there was war, Haakon would fight as a pagan warrior rather than as a Christian. It was believed at the time that kings were so favoured by the gods that they could stand in the front line without armour and fight much harder than everyone else. That is exactly what Haakon did. He threw away his armour and fought in the front line. However, it was easy for the enemy to see who the king was because of his golden helmet, so Haakon's loyal Skald threw some cloth over his helmet to hide it. The Norwegians fought valiantly and won the fight, despite being outnumbered. When the Danes fled towards their ship, the Norwegians would chase after them, killing anyone they could catch. This was when Haakon was hit by an arrow through the chest by Danes who were fleeing from the battle. The war was won, but the king was wounded. Haakon was carried by ship to the farm he grew up in, and he died only a few days later. With his last breath, he urged his closest advisors to find the sons of Eric and let them know that they can have the kingdom, as they had fought so bravely. The people grieved the dying king and knew that a good king like Haakon was rare. When the sons of Eric took over, the people would once again be oppressed by tyrants. Haakon was buried in a traditional heathen fashion, along with his weapons and armour.